It's the This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update with Scott Faughn.
Welcome into This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update. I'm Scott Faughn. I'm going to get to bring you one of my favorite people to talk politics with, a guy that knows Missouri politics inside and out and national politics. Chris Arps, with Newsmax, with 97.1, formerly 97.1, now with News Talk STL, afternoon show with Tim Jones. Chris, thank you so much for making the time to visit with us.
Scott, thank you so much for having me on. And as I told you before we started, man, I feel like I've made it now. I'm on This Week in Missouri Politics. I also want to apologize to you. I'm in the last remnants of a cold, so the voice may be a little froggy. So I want to apologize to you and your audience.
Chris, I've seen you all around Missouri. And just this week, it's been 80-something, and it's been 36. If you don't have a cold, you're some kind of cyborg.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no way not to have a cold when you're in a place that goes from 86 to 36 in 48 hours.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but we've been doing some press conferences on what we're going to talk about today, and a few of those press conference participants were sick. And I think
you're throwing Hoskins under the bus, yeah. No, Hoskins.
Not Hoskins, actually. It's actually Vivek and
Vivek's patient zero.
And Andrew Bailey. They were both having a little sniffle issues last week.
All right. First off the bat, though, I want to talk about these amendments. Let's start with Amendment 7. You've been very vocal. Give me if I had half a beer left, how would you explain Amendment 7 to me while I finished it?
Well, I'd say simply that Amendment 7 changes one single word in our state constitution. You know, most state constitutions say that every or all United States citizens have a right to vote in our country. Well, we want to change that to say only United States citizens can vote in our elections. And the reason for that, Scott, there's been a movement since 2019 when I first got involved with American for Citizens Voting for people to want to allow non-citizens, those who are in our country legally with green cards, to vote in municipal and mayoral elections. We just saw in Washington, D.C., they have passed an ordinance that allows non-citizens to vote. New York City, a couple of years ago, passed an ordinance that allows non-citizens to vote in their mayoral and municipal elections. Right now, that is caught up in litigation. And there are 19 other cities around the nation that allows this. We're just trying to stop that here in Missouri by having folks vote yes on Amendment 7.
So let me play devil's advocate from is this necessary? Like right now, if you ask Jay Ashcroft, and I have, he says no Mexicans are voting, none.
Right.
So then he will tell you that it's also illegal currently for Mexicans to vote. I have asked him, what do you need to do to be able to prove this? And he says we have to have access to a federal database. They won't give us access to it. What does amendment do to change the current situation on the ground in Missouri?
Let me read you something here. This is from a University of Kentucky law professor who has written a report, basically a liberal professor, who has said that there is nothing within the Missouri Constitution that precludes non-citizens from voting in our election. First of all, he says Missouri law gives any city with a population of over 400,000 the right to regulate its own elections. Thus, Kansas City, the only Missouri city with a population that high, may enact rules for its local elections that go beyond state voter qualifications. Now, he even goes on, Scott. He says, as of 2003, there were 36 constitutional charter cities and 7 special charter cities. Therefore, 43 cities in Missouri have all of the power which the General Assembly of the state of Missouri confers upon them. They are only restrained by the Constitution of the state. The Constitution of the state of Missouri does not limit the right to vote to only United States citizens. There is nothing stopping these 43 cities from allowing non-citizens to vote in municipal and school board elections. What the proponents of non-citizen voting are doing, Scott, is they're basically saying, well, the state constitutions do say every or all United States citizens can vote, but it's not telling who can not vote. And so that's why we want to change that.
There's a state law, right, that says you can't do that.
Pardon?
Like if a Mexican comes up to vote, not Steve Hobbs, but not an Audrain County Mexican, but
right.
If a Mexican from Guadalajara comes up, they can't vote by state law, right?
They can't vote by state law, but what we're trying to do, Scott, is Kansas City, your hometown, any of these other cities around the state of Missouri can, on their own, allow non-citizens to vote in their municipal and mayoral elections.
In
That's why we're
Stringtown and
trying to
West
change
Butler
the state
County,
constitution.
we ain't letting them vote. But now where Todd's from, over in Rumbar in East Butler County,
Right.
they might. But I have a. So I asked this question to somebody else, and I
Sure.
got a. They pitched me a response. They said, "Look, I actually have a lot of confidence in our Missouri Supreme Court." But one of the rulings I think was not good for the state. Now, it may have been they had to rule that way on the law. I'm not a lawyer, don't know. The Clean Missouri thing basically said you can smudge 6 or 7 things into one constitutional provision and run it through. So while they had a gerrymandering scheme, which again, whatever you want to think about it, was they thought they could elect more Democrats with this plan, and they smudged it in with ethics, right? And they passed Clean Missouri.
Right.
Then the Republicans had Cleaner Missouri, whatever. But to me, it is in the state law. I don't think Mexicans are voting now. But looking forward, it does feel to me like putting this in the Constitution, it seems like a silly thing. Like maybe it's a little much. Like putting marijuana in the Constitution seems like, well, maybe that's a lot. But when our Constitution is so easily changed, you could see someone come in here 4 or 8 years from now and put together something very popular, like let's say sports betting, let's say Medicaid, minimum wage increase, and stick non-citizen voting in there, and you kind of have the same red herring. You'd be looking at the shiny popular thing with all the money behind it, and you'd slide in 4 or 5 other provisions. I think that, to me, is a good argument why you take this from the statute books and move it over to the Constitution.
Exactly, and that's why we want to put it in the state constitution. Because you can put a state law that says that non-citizens can't vote, but the legislature turns over. They could change that law, amend it. That's why we want to change that one word to say.
Or one of
only
these
the United
out-of-state
States
groups
citizens
comes in
vote.
here and says, we're going to give you sports betting, raise the minimum wage, all these other things. Oh, and by the way, we're also going to do a little non-citizen voting. And that's kind of, to me, that's when you've opened the door to allow constitutional provisions to be placed on the ballot that are clearly multiple things. Now, you can make some lawyer argument, but clearly ethics and gerrymandering are different. Those are different things.
And
you could do a
Scott,
thing like this.
And we know the political process. If non-citizens, illegal aliens, were given the right to vote in municipal and mayoral elections, we both know it's not going to stop there. Once you give a right away, you can't take that right away. It only is expanded. So the next argument is, well, if they're allowed to vote in mayoral and municipal elections, then why can't they vote for Congress? Why can't they vote for the governor? Why can't they vote for president of the United States? This is just a preemptory move so that this will not happen in Missouri like it's happening in California, Vermont, Maryland, D.C., New York. We will not, we don't want non-citizens voting in our elections. Now, let me say, Americans for Citizen Voting, we are not against illegal. We're not against legal immigrants. We're not against immigration. All we ask is that if you want to participate in our democratic process, complete the process, become a citizen, and then you can vote all that you want.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, when you start looking at some of the other things in here, they are related to voting. Like you're going to ban ranked choice voting. I tell you, I've had 2 people at supper try to explain to me what a ranked choice voting is. It could be that I'm a simple hillbilly. I still don't know how the hell you'd even fill out a ballot. It just seems so overthought. I'm going to get your thought on how Georgia does it. Georgia, you go in the primary, and I guess you vote for one, right? Then the top 2 move on to the fall, you vote for one. I guess they have a runoff, which seems a little silly to me, but if you were going to change the system of voting, which I think Missouri's voting system's fine, but if you were, I kind of see the point of, okay, you vote for one in the primary, one in the general. That makes some sense to me.
Yeah. Georgia is one of the states that we've been working very hard on to try to get we call it the citizen-only voting amendment on the ballot. We're having a little difficulty with that. But when it comes to the ranked choice voting, look, there are already so many questions in our elections right now. People are questioning the integrity of it. The last thing that we need is ranked choice voting, which just adds even more confusion to the process. We've seen reports where we're not finding out who wins the election a week, 2 weeks, in some cases a month after the election. And then there's questions of ballot spoilage. I mean, it seems like it would be much easier to spoil a ballot when you're ranking different candidates. Also, aspect of it as well is the spoilage, but also I can't remember my other point. But spoilage is a big issue with ranked choice voting, I think.
Yeah.
Also, here's what it is: a recount. How do you recount? Do a recount with ranked choice voting before you get the final count? It's just a nightmare, and we don't need it, and that's why
Can you
we
imagine
need to
going
pass
down West
amendments.
Plains and going to the MFA grain elevator and trying to explain this to somebody? I just don't. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. I think they have good intentions. I just think they've taken a concept and they've overthought it a little bit.
And Scott, we know what this is really about. Missouri is ruby red. Democrats have been out of power for decades now. This ranked choice voting is just a scheme that can give them some power back in the state of Missouri. That's all it's about. It's not about fairness. It's not about trying to get the best candidates. It's trying to get Democrats back into power in Missouri.
So around the state, how's the response? How are you feeling about the amendment's chances?
I think the amendment's going to do very well, Scott. We did some polling on this a couple of weeks ago. That was why we were doing our tour here of citizens for the citizen-only voting amendment. 83% of Missourians support amendment, the citizen-only voting aspect of Amendment 7. 62% supported overall. It's supported by all demographics. 97% of Republicans support it, 71% of independents, 71% of Democrats support this. And when it comes to people of color, 58% of people support Amendment 7 here in Missouri, 60% of naturalized citizens. So across the board, Missourians realize that citizens should be the only one voting in our elections.
All right, there are a few more things on that ballot. There's some casino stuff. I'd love to see a casino at the Lake of the Ozarks. I think it would be a very good thing for the state. I think if you look at, I think COVID opened the whole world's eyes up to Lake of the Ozarks. If you don't want people telling you what the hell to do, go to Coconuts at Lake of the Ozarks, right, Kelton?
No.
Go to Dog Days, and people leave you the hell alone. But I think a casino would be an outstanding thing to help. How many conventions do you think you could have? But you got to have a place to have them. And I think that's one of the problems right now. It's hard to have a major convention there. You have the hotel rooms, but you don't have the space. And I think a casino kind of brings that. You don't have the concerts that a casino could bring. I'm excited about the prospects of the Lake of the Ozarks with a casino. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, though.
Look, I'm not a big proponent of voting. If that's something, or of gambling, if that's something that floats your boat, go for it. I don't have a problem.
Kelton, actually, I should tell you, owns an illegal sports book.
Oh, is that right? All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk after. No, but I don't have a problem with that.
He don't want Becky here to talk about him gambling. Well, you don't want that.
Becky's upstairs. But, look, gambling's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. There are states all around us that have casinos, that have horse betting, that have legalized betting in their states. I think Missouri should join those states and get some of that revenue instead of it going to other states.
I hear people, look, the guys running this campaign are some of the smartest ballot initiative folks in the state. And I'm not a very good example. You get too deep into something, you don't have the best perspective. But I'll say this, I don't give a damn where the tax revenue goes. I really don't care. Yeah. I just think that, and I'm not a big gambler, to be honest with you, because I'm too cheap. I would be a gambler, except when I start losing, I get cheap and want to quit.
I'm with you, brother, on that one.
But I would like to every so often lay $10 on the Chiefs or lay $20 on Mizzou. And I think it always irks me. I hear all these people run for office. They come on your show. They talk about liberty and freedom and getting the government off your back. But most of them, in their heart of hearts, only want the government to be off your back on stuff they like. And stuff they don't want you to do, they want the government right up in your hind end. I just think who am I to tell Kelton he can't bet on the Chiefs? I just don't know where. I think that's where the liberty and freedom part actually comes in, right?
Yeah, I agree. Look, if you want to spend your money, you want to gamble, if it's a recreational thing, I don't have a problem with that. Some people, of course, have a gambling problem, and they have to have that resolved. But I think overall, look,
hell, cheeseburgers are legal, and I probably should eat fewer of them.
Exactly. Gambling is here to stay. And
I agree
I
with
think
that.
we are fools not to capture some of that revenue and stop letting it go to other states.
The Cardinals games are on Bally's Sports Midwest. Gambling's here. Now, again, I'm just not the type that's going to bet too much on stuff simply because I would probably bet more on games I don't care as much about. Like, I'm a Chiefs fan, but I'm not like a Chiefs fan like Parson is or Rizzo
Right.
is. But I would, to me, gambling makes it a little more fun. But it just comes back to, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? Want to bet on that?
Yeah.
I'll do is what I'll do. It's
Yeah,
kind
if
of
you
like
want
the
to spend
pot
your money
argument.
doing that, fine. Just as
I'm a
long as it
German.
doesn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah, shout out to David
You're not hurting.
Castile, my guy from Jefferson County, bought me a collection of these Ducks Unlimited mugs. They're beautiful. I've got next time you're down to Jeff City, I take you over to the Speakeasy and show you. I got a whole Castile shelf. It's awesome.
All right.
Uh,
Good man. I love Dave Castile.
I just think looking forward, it's like with the pot or whatever else. It's not I don't have any interest in telling you how to live your damn life, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I do think that there is some public interest in it. If someone has a problem and they're gambling away their mortgage or their kids' college fund, but there are things in place for that where you
you
call
could be
bets
drinking
off
up
or
your
whatever, and
mortgage too,
you can
right?
ban yourself.
You could
Exactly.
be. I mean, trust me. As a German, the marijuana thing didn't mean much to me. I just again don't know why I should tell you what to do. If you want to chew a pot gummy or smoke a joint, I'm having a hard time seeing how that affects me, right? If I want to go drink a whole case of Bud Light and my David Castile gift Ducks Unlimited mug, I don't see how that's your business. I guess I'm an old school Republican. It's the what the hell is
It
it
only
to
becomes
you
my
type
business when
Republican.
it only becomes our business when you get behind the wheel of a car and maybe
Fair point.
harm
Fair point.
yourself, harm someone else.
Fair point. All right, let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about Amendment 3. All right, you get to deal with a lot of the St. Louis media market being on. What time is, by the way, what time is the show on?
The Tim Jones and Chris Arp show is on from 4 to 6 on News Talk STL. You can stream it. We always like to say your phone is your radio. So newstalkstl.com. Tim Jones, former Speaker of the House. We start that show at 4 o'clock.
One of the first subscribers of the Missouri Times. I'll never forget it.
Okay.
So Amendment 3, I get the sense, this is just my travel in the state. Outstate, they're going to vote no, but they're not going to vote no by like the big margins it's going to take to win. Outstate will say no on Amendment 3, but not by a resounding amount. Kansas City is going to say yes by a decent amount, but St. Louis is going to say hell yes. I mean, the numbers I've seen, really, Amendment 3 doesn't have a lot of coattails for Democrats, except in St. Louis, there could be a storm brewing that does make it to where Amendment 3 does have some legs in the St. Louis media market. Am I off?
No. Abortion is a huge issue here in St. Louis. We have a group here, Thrive of Missouri. They've been a big anti-abortion group. They've been helping women with their needs who want to keep their babies. Thrive is really one of the organizations that. Thrive is one of the organizations that has forced really the abortionists over to Illinois, where they have built this massive abortion facility. So I think that's why the spotlight is the most on abortion here in St. Louis, because we've been the most active here on trying to eradicate it.
But Chris, I think, just to talk about Thrive for a second, I look at this campaign, and let's just take the personalities and the emotion out of it. I look at a pro-choice group that is all aligned, all in the same message, well-funded, well-organized, dropping very targeted advertisements to folks. The pro-life side, no money, divided. I mean, let's be honest. The only thing pro-life people hate more than abortion is other pro-life people. It is a bad stew. If the pro-life folks could beat this amendment, then they're a bulletproof tiger, and the pro-choice people should pack it up and go to a different state. I just think there's a market brewing, and I tell you what, the differentiator I see is I think you have a sizable number of people that consider themselves to be pro-life, people that vote Republican, and they vote Republican in part because they are pro-life, that I think feels this law is a little extreme. And now I don't think they know how extreme Amendment 3 is. They probably, if they read it all, and wouldn't like some of the parts of it. Yeah, but I think there's a sense of that pro-life person who is pro-life today will be pro-life a month from now. But I think they're going to go vote for Amendment 3. Am I wrong?
Yeah. We have a person like that that's on our station in News Talk STL, Susie Moore. She's the deputy
Yeah.
managing editor of RedState.com. She put out something on her Facebook page yesterday that she's very pro-life, but some folks may not like. She is going to vote in favor of Amendment 3. And her issue seems to be, from my reading, it is the viability issue. She recounts a story of how her daughter was born premature, and according to the law, she was not viable, even though she's alive today and has finished college. She is viable. So I think there are very strong pro-life folks in the movement, that there are certain aspects of Amendment 3, such as viability for Susie Moore, that's just a bridge too far for them, and they're going to vote in the affirmative. Scott, I want to ask you, because you are the expert on Missouri politics, seriously, why do you think that there hasn't been a lot of money from the pro-life side trying to defeat Amendment 3? All the money does seem to be on the other side. We've got people with deep pockets here that are very pro-life, but where's the money?
I think that through the time that the Republicans took the majority back in the day, back when you were still out walking St. Charles streets, getting Sherman Parker elected and folks like that in tough races, when St. Charles is a battleground, I think Republicans, once they figured out they could win electoral issues, the deep pockets want to invest in candidates that can then go vote on a myriad of issues. I think Democrats have learned that, like Deb Lavender had a huge financial lead 4 years ago over Andrew Koenig, and Andrew Koenig still won. I think these groups, Democratic groups, which Democrats are usually more top-down from Washington, Republicans, especially Missouri, a little more bottom-up. When we've seen top-down Washington candidates come, they haven't done well, such as with the Attorney General's race this summer. I think there's an entrained part of Democrats that says we can't win these elections on the candidate side, but we have had a lot of success at the ballot box, be it from right to work, be it from Medicaid expansion, marijuana legalization, minimum wage increase, going down the list. I think they've been trained by, like all of us, what works. You have a very successful radio show. You've taken the things that work and accentuated them, and the things you've tried that didn't work, you didn't do. I think the same logic is applied to donors in both the Republican and Democrat side. You usually give your money where you see results, and Democrats have seen results on ballot measures, and they have not seen results on candidates.
That makes sense. It's just, you would just think, we're conservatives, we're very pro-life, we're very passionate about that issue, and we see how Missouri has been a state that practically outlawed abortion. You'd think we'd want to keep that designation as a strong pro-life support, so you'd think that money would be pouring in from everywhere, and
I'll tell you the bigger issue
materialize
that we're going to see. I was very young. The truth is, I didn't know what I was learning at the time. I came to Jeff City at the last little bit of the Democrats being in charge. It was like the helicopters were landing on the embassy in Hanoi, and you knew stuff was going down. But I remember watching and really taking that in. It was more a gut feeling of the feeling in the air. And then later I had people inform me and give me pieces of the puzzle of what I actually was seeing at the time. The Democrats only talked to themselves. They had Camp Carnahan that ran out pro-life candidates, pro-gun candidates. They did not want them. And so Jeffco said, well, we're pro-life, pro-gun Democrats, but if you're not pro-life or pro-gun, we're not Democrats, right? St. Charles County, some of the same stuff. You went from Ted House, who, tremendous candidate, very good politician, probably would be a moderate Republican if he entered politics today, to just the national parties pushing him out. I wonder, David Gregory's race is going to be very interesting. Chris, how many people in this party, you're one of the rare ones that actually speak to folks that aren't Republicans. You try to grow the tent. We have turned into a party that sits inside the tent and screams at each other. Very few people are willing to go out and try to engage new coalitions. And part of that is when you're winning, you're fat and happy and you don't care. But the David Gregory race is going to be very interesting. He had to actually go out. If he wins this, he will have went out and got people that don't want to vote for Republicans necessarily. They don't want to vote for Trump, but they voted for him. It's going to be very interesting to look, because the way I see the future, I see the Republicans having a majority for the next decade. But I do see that majority tightening some. And the best way for it to tighten fast is to continue to just look inside and scream at each other and not innovate and not bring in other groups. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Exactly, 100%. And the old saying, when you have a supermajority and majorities, that that kind of creates factions, and people are screaming for airtime and for TV time and all of that. So I don't know. I worry about the Republican majority in the next 10 or 15 years, because we're seeing some seats kind of slip away. Look, I'm glad that the conservative party is conservative as it is. I am a conservative, but not all of the people that align with us are as conservative as we are. And we've got to get away from the whole rhino usage of that term to describe people that aren't as conservative as we are. Look, we all agree on the fundamental aspects of conservative philosophy. We may not be as strong as some, but this whole rhino, if you're not with me, you're a rhino, that's all got to go.
Well, I mean, to me, I look at Thrive. I have such a high admiration for Thrive. But what I see Thrive do is I see them go out almost like my mama is the best church recruiter in the world. But she goes out and makes a friend. And then before you know it, that friend is sitting on the pew in church beside her. They just thought they thought they were making a friend. Thrive goes out and meets needs and ministers to people and helps them and offers them. It doesn't come to them preaching at them that, oh, if you're even considering abortion is murder and all this. It goes and helps a single potential mother with major problems. Like, we all think we have problems because the plumber's 2 hours later, the cable guy doesn't come in the window.
Right.
I mean, when you're pregnant in some of these situations, that's real problems. That's legit stuff. And I think Thrive is if the Republicans could learn a lesson, to me, be Thrive, man. Go out and meet people, befriend them. Then before you know it, man, they'll want to be in your political party. But right now, the Republicans have a lot of screaming and nastiness, and who the hell wants to sit at that table? I mean, I find myself sometimes at Jeff City, I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. That's just constant whining. The St. Charlesization of the Republican Party, I'm not sure is the great ticket for the future.
You may be right, and as we said, we're losing some of the moderate type of seats. They seem to be going to the Democrats. Our majority is strong, but it is slipping a bit.
All right, let's talk about some of these. You get to talk to national people that I just don't get to ever see. I think Josh Hawley is a very good politician, will win re-election. I thought if Trump wins the state by 14, 15, I thought Hawley would be there at 12 or 13. I'm thinking as this goes on, it's more 8 or 9. Am I wrong?
I think you're right. And one thing that has really kind of surprised me a little bit about the Hawley race, look, Missouri is a very red state. It's very conservative. Josh Hawley is conservative. He ran on a conservative record back in 2018. I was out at the airport when he was on Air Force One with Donald Trump. He has aligned himself with Donald Trump. The kind of tack to the center a little bit and kind of supporting union issues and some kind of the Democratic issues, that's been a surprise to me, because I've kind of been like, you don't really need to do this in Missouri. Am I wrong? Because like I said, you follow Missouri politics very, very closely. Was it necessary for him to tack to the middle and kind of tack on to some of the Democratic issues?
I firmly believe this state is not ideological. They're just not. I don't think most people even know that he did that. I don't think most Missourians, they could understand it, but you'd have to really sit down and give them, I think it'd take 5 minutes to understand what he's actually done, which is far too long for most people, raising kids, have jobs. I think that there's an impression of Josh Hawley that's almost too perfect. He almost needs to spill a little mustard on his shirt. What he actually needs to do is let Mike Kehoe take him clothes shopping. That's what Josh Hawley needs to do. But I do think I was a little surprised. I really anticipated Hawley being tougher. And I guess on one level, you tip your hat to Lucas Kuntz for running a good race, and he is working hard. Yeah. But in my gut, it's not Lucas Kuntz. I don't think Lucas Kuntz is some kind of candidate that cuts in a margin. I think it could be maybe the folks want to see Hawley here more. I don't know what it is. I've been a little surprised that race is as tight as it is, but I still think, Josh Hawley's going to win re-election hands down with a healthy margin. But I've been a little surprised to see that race tighten.
Well, I tell you what, Lucas Kuntz, first of all, Vervis Jones, I know you know who he is. He's the father of the mayor, Tashara Jones. He's been calling Lucas Kuntz out on Twitter because Democrats can't win without black black people, especially black women. And
Yeah.
Lucas Combs has not endorsed Kamala Harris for president yet. And Vervis Jones calls him out on Twitter every minute that he can on that. So I'm certainly that can't be helping his campaign.
I tell you what I think always helps with Josh Hawley. Like, Josh Hawley kind of dresses a little funny, but when you hear him talk, the dude is smart. The dude is like next level smart. I mean, the dude could take, like, he explained to a reporter who was trying to get him in a gotcha and saying, oh, you supported Trump's tax cuts, now you're supporting a different kind of tax cut. And it was a good question. It was totally meant to trip him up, which is fine. I mean, he's a United States senator. He should be able to answer the questions. But he answered it so well. It was so good. I was so impressed. I mean, when you hear Josh Hawley talk, the dude is so good on his feet, man.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. You know who else was good on their feet like that, and I had the pleasure of working for him? Senator Jim Talent. That's a wickedly smart man as well. And he used to just some of the answers he would give to these reporters, I'd be like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, and Hawley has that brain that's just and he's got that deep voice. I mean, there's a lot of positives. I have been a little surprised the closest of the race. Yeah. Up and down the ballot, I don't think there's any doubt the Republicans will sweep the statewide races. But give me an insight. So Nicole Galloway ran against Parson. I think Parson won by 16. Do you think Quaid shaves into that margin? Does she outperform 4 years ago?
I don't think so at all. I think she's going to be shellacked. She's going to be the sacrificial lamb this year.
You lose by 15, you get shellacked, but you do better, right?
No. I think it's going to be somewhere around that same margin. Republicans or the people of the state of Missouri just aren't feeling Democrats in a statewide elected office. Crystal Quaid is very liberal. I just don't think she fits in with Missouri values, and I think she's the sacrificial lamb for this year.
I think there's some truth in that, but if you recall, Jay Nixon was Jack Danforth's sacrificial lamb once.
Yeah.
John Ashcroft was a congressional candidate that lost once. I mean, we've seen some of these. Mel Carnahan was a sacrificial lamb statewide once, as was Bob Holden. I think this state has a history.
It's a different time, though, Scott, than
that's true.
Today and those times.
You're not wrong about that. Eric Schmidt did not have to be a sacrificial lamb to get where he's at.
No.
Nor did Mike Parsons.
He's had a pretty good run.
Nor did Mike Kehoe. So I'll bet you a cold one on that. I think Quaid tops Galloway's margin. I think it doesn't narrow it by a lot, but I think she overperforms 4 years ago. And the abortion thing's got something to do with that.
Yeah.
And not running against an incumbent,
Yeah, you're right. The abortion question may shave a few points on there, but I think it's going to be a overwhelming victory by Lieutenant Governor Kehoe on November 5th.
Let's get local. Some St. Louis race that I know you got to have some read on. Yeah. What's that 15th Senate district look like? David Gregory versus Joe Peerless.
You know what, Scott? I'll be honest with you. I haven't been following it all that closely. Honestly, I haven't.
I think that's where
I know it's one of the premier races, and that people are following it, but I just haven't.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see where, at the end of the day, where she goes with that. Right? I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see. This could be very interesting to see if women in Chesterfield that I think are going to vote overwhelmingly for Amendment 3 actually go up the ballot and penalize some of the Republicans for not agreeing with them on it. I think that's ground zero for where you're going to be able to tell if does abortion politics have legs in this state.
Yeah. And as we know, the St. Louis County is, one time was kind of middle of the road between Republican and Democrat. It's overwhelmingly Democrat. When I worked for the St. Louis County Council back in 2002.
Oh, who'd you work for?
I worked for Campese.
Oh, awesome.
In the 6th District.
Here on the week of Columbus Day.
Exactly. Exactly. A weird thing on Columbus Day, this is a side note, but on Columbus Day, we were driving out of town, so we filled up the tank, and I swear to God, it stopped at 1492 on Columbus Day. I took a picture of it.
No kidding?
Can't make that up.
All right, I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Yes, sir.
Bill Eigel.
Yes.
Tons of talent. Great politician. I've always liked Bill. What's Bill going to do next? I'll go first. I think he wants to run for Congress now. I think it's going to be very hard to go back to those trial lawyers and do another run in 4 years. That's also politics. Looking 4 years out's a lot. I think he'd like to run for Congress. I think Bob Onder, I'll be honest with you, has impressed everyone since he won. In the western part of this district, Bob Onder has been everything you could ask for. And he's talking about the things privately that you care about. I mean, essentially, a member of Congress' only real job is to bring home money for their district.
Right.
The rest of it's just social media BS. Bob Onder has impressed every single person on the western half of his district. I think he's going to do a good job. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people that voted for Kurt Schaefer or don't like Bob Onder. I think the Congressman Bob Onder is going to impress a lot of folks. I think Bill Eigel would like to go with his buddy. I mean, they served together for a long time. Ann Wagner, I would want to take on Ann Wagner. Exactly. I think he runs to replace Ellman and bides his time because while Ann doesn't have any reason she needs to retire, I do think there's a piece of, if I had to guess, she's not going to be there for another 8 or 10 years, right? Her time that she probably wants to do some other things. Ray's now retired. My gut tells me he kicks that congressional race around and takes a punt on it and runs for St. Charles County Executive and waits. What do you think?
I'm with you on that. I talked to a political mentor friend of mine on Saturday just about that race. If Bill Eigel challenged her, could he win? And I brought up, look, a lot of people are saying Ann's a rhino, and a lot of people are disappointed back in 2016 when she took her endorsement back on Trump. A lot of people haven't forgiven her for that. And so, it seems like she's going to have a tough race every cycle, even though she does win. But he said, look, he's known Ann Wagner for a long time. Don't take her for granted. She is a tough campaigner, and she would definitely would give him a run for his money for
I
that
think she
race.
would beat Bill if you want the truth. I think Ann would win.
Yeah, he would win. She would definitely win, and she can be tough and would be tough if she had to. I think he'll probably run for the county executive because Scott, you're in politics. You don't want to be labeled as a perennial loser. He did a good race against in the governor's race, but he lost. He doesn't want to run for Congress and lose that race too. You don't want to be pinned with that. So
you can lose for show once, right? I think him coming in second ahead of Jay Ashcroft with a very respectable campaign and margin.
Yes,
I think you get a mulligan on that. But yeah, if you come out and run for Congress and lose, your prospects are quite dimmed. I think if he were to run for county executive, I know Jason Law, I know Mike Elam. Good guys. They probably have to get in a room and figure out only one of them, right? If you have Eigel, you probably only have one guy on the other side to fight it out. Right. It'll be interesting to me to see what he does. But the one thing is, Bill Eigel knows how to connect with folks, and especially that suburban voter, that guy that's pissed off and wanting somebody to blame. Bill Eigel knows what's up with that dude.
I saw Bill Eigel's talent. I worked for Bill Eigel in 2016 on his campaign. I put together a walk program for him where we actually hired people to go walk doors and put literature for him. And I saw back then that he was a very skilled politician, very good with his words, and that he was going to have a future in the Republican Party in politics. Yeah. And he demonstrated that in the Senate. He had a good run. And like I said, at the Young Republicans barbecue last weekend where he spoke, I don't think we've seen the last of Bill Eigel.
I totally agree. And while this may not be a popular opinion, I think that's a good thing. I think Bill is a very talented guy. I also tell you this: people saw some of the worst versions of Bill on the Senate floor. Yeah. If Bill was actually in charge of something, I think Bill would have done a great job. Yeah. I think if Bill was the Senate floor leader, he'd done a good job. I think he would have been a different guy.
Yeah, and a lot of people, don't like Bill Eigel. They don't like his tactics and the way that he does things sometimes. But you can't question his heart, and you can't question that he is a true believer in the conservative movement and wants only the best for Missourians and the Republican Party. I don't think anybody can question that, whether you like or dislike Bill Eigel.
I'll tell you his harshest critics. I'll be honest with him. I just tell you what's on my mind. Well, I was a Kehoe guy in the primary. And I will be voting for Mike Kehoe whenever me and Gussie go vote here in a week or so, 2 or 3, whatever it is. But I'll tell you this: I believe if Bill Eigel would have been elected governor, he would have impressed everybody because I think Bill just viewed it as I'm the opposition to whoever's in charge. Until I get to be in charge, I'm the opposition. And if he ever got to be in charge, I think he would have done a good job. I've told many people that. Many of them have looked at me like I had two heads. But I absolutely believe whatever job Bill Eigel, number one, is not a legislative guy. Like, if his high school counselor give him his personality test, she would not say, go serve in a body with 33 other people. That is not where Bill Eigel's the best at. Bill Eigel's an executive. You put him in an executive job, I think he'll really do well. Now, Congress is almost, bizarre or whatever. But I think if Bill was in an executive position, he would actually do a very good job, and he would surprise a lot of his harshest critics, in my view.
All right, Scott, let's play what if here.
Yeah.
If Jay Ashcroft was not in the race, does Bill Eigel beat Kehoe?
I think, there's a lot of butterfly effects there, but I'll tell you this. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll answer it with a different thing. Okay. I think that if Jay Ashcroft ran and Bill Eigel didn't, Mike Kehoe still wins. I think if Jay Ashcroft doesn't run and Bill Eigel ran against Mike Kehoe alone, I think Bill Eigel would have had the chance to win. And I think to say who would have won, boy, you're getting into a lot of variables here. Kehoe could have just turned all his money on hitting Eigel. Eigel coming from really no base.
Who does the Ashcroft vote go to?
I think it splits more than you think. I mean, there wasn't just a ton of it, right? And if you look at where the vote was, you had a lot of folks that respected that name. And I think the folks that were with Ashcroft because of his name go to Kehoe. I think the folks that thought maybe he was the more right-wing candidate, those votes go to Eigel. But of the 25%, man, I think you'd have a hard time arguing one of the other was more than 15% of that 25. I think it was 15-10 one way or the other. And I think, so whoever got that extra 5 wouldn't have closed the election. I also don't know that Bill Eigel could have withstood, without having a chance to ever brand himself, if Kehoe could have just poured all of his money on demonizing him. I like the chances of a Kehoe in that situation. So it's hard to say, but I do think that Bill Eigel would have had the chance to win that campaign if Ashcroft wasn't in it. But I honestly don't think, in hindsight, that Jay would have won even if Bill wasn't in it.
What does Kehoe have to do to win over the 59% of Republican voters who didn't vote for him in the primary? And does he have a mandate when he's elected? Because he didn't win the majority during the primary. When he gets elected, does he have a mandate from Republicans, you think?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, he's going to have a mandate from Missouri. He's going to win by an overwhelming margin. He won the primary by a healthy amount. I think that number one for Missourians, just being governor, we have a tendency to want to support our governor as Missourians. Historically, we've always kind of liked that. I think your loud activist people, look, Mike Kehoe's a leader. He's the bull of the woods. Mike Kehoe might beat your ass, but he's not going to get on the internet and whine and complain. There's going to be some St. Charles County type whining people that aren't going to like him. But for the it's like Mike Parsons. Some of the same people that chirp at him, but show me any poll of Republican voters, he's over 80% approval ratings, right? So you can almost get distracted because the most negative are the loudest. But I think if you turn things back around, I think just being governor, one. Number two, most of these loudmouth people just want a little access, a little rub from the governor, and they're happy as they can be. I think he's got to do some of that. Number three, I think the thing that'll be different about Mike Kehoe, I think Eigel could have done this, but it was going to take some work. He's going to have to raise his game a little. Mike Kehoe can sit in a room and get people to vote for big things that don't want to. The education bill that was passed last session, ask anyone. The person that went to the rooms and got those votes was Mike Kehoe. The person that went and got folks to sit down was Mike Kehoe. Now, he did not do it calling them assholes on Facebook. He did not do it going on your show and saying everybody in this that can hear me, all the Republicans suck and I'm the only good person in town. He got that by going to their office as lieutenant governor with no power. And frankly, keep in mind, back in April when this passed, he was still down in the polls considerably to Ashcroft. But the strength of his personality, the strength of who he is, was able to bring people in. And I think once people start seeing a couple of these big wins, you're always going to have your detractors. There's no question. But I think those detractors get pretty quiet after they see him start racking up wins. There's my take. What do you think he needs to do? I think we've lost his audio.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Chris, I think we've lost your audio there if you can hear me. I think he's saying he can. Are we? Well, while we try to bring Chris back, hey, Chris, we've kept you longer than I asked for. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That was Chris Arps, everybody. One of my favorite people to talk politics with. Chris just gets it. He understands what's going on. He actually talks to folks that aren't your most rock rib conservatives. Really solid dude. Kelton, is it time to make your picks?
I believe so.
What do you got? Let's start with this Mizzou game.
Oh, we got Mizzou at they're the favorite in this one at negative 4.5.
Boy, that line started off like it. Did it start at 9 or 10?
It's crept down over time.
Yeah, that line's come down a lot. Where are you going? You going Mizzou? You going? You giving the points? Of course, you're a homer. You're going Mizzou. Are you giving the points?
Absolutely, I am.
What a homer every time. Okay, I'm actually going to go with you on this. I'll go homer. I'll go Mizzou straight up. I don't need the points. I'll take Mizzou to win this game. I'll give the points. I'll take Mizzou to win this game and cover the spread. I'm with you on that. I think they're going to be a little pissed off that no one believes in them, and I think the reason no one believes in them is because they've struggled. But I think they're going to come out pissed off and settle some scores. Now, what about the Chiefs? Where are the Chiefs at? They're Sunday afternoon, the 3:30 game?
Yes, and they are actually the underdog plus 1.5.
How are you 5-0? Just because they're on the road? They're 5-0 playing the 49ers. They're underdog.
I believe let me pull it up again. Yes, I don't know why, honestly.
I guess the road game. 49ers are a good team. I'll go Chiefs, and I'll take the points.
I'll take the points too, just because it's so low.
All right, Kelton. Thanks again to Chris Arps. Elon Gross Sunday. Yeah, you're gonna like this guy. He's full of piss and vinegar. He's a Democrat nominee for Attorney General. I like the dude. I think you're gonna like him too. From the campus of the University of Central Missouri in beautiful Warrensburg, home of Hacksaw Butch Reed and the impeccably dressed David Pierce. And why is it we call it impeccably dressed when David Pierce wears tacky jackets, and we call them tacky jackets when Denny wears them?
I personally like Denny's jackets, to be honest with you.
Wow, that says a lot. But heck, the home of Michelle Hoskins is really the point. We will